Okay, so your quiz today is going to be over the types of questions on the front side of your opener. So remember, you can use your notes, which are going to be your percent increase, decrease notes that have 4 steps. So the first question is a $20 video game is marked up 50%, then later discounted at 50%. What is the final price of the game? Now, you would think, well, Ms. Litteken, that's really kind of a stupid question, because if it's marked up 50%, then taken off 50%, wouldn't it just be back to $20? Well, the answer to that is going to be no. Because if you have a $20 video game and you increase the price by 50%, then you have a new price and you decrease that price by 50%, your final price of the game is not going to be back down to $20. Okay? So, how many multipliers am I going to end up having for this particular question? 2. Good. So that means I'm going to have to do steps 1 through 3 twice. So my first percent change is going to be the marked up 50%, and then discounted 50% is my second percent change. Marked up, is that going to be an increase or decrease in price? Okay, and then discounted is going to be a, all right. So step 1 says to do what?
100% plus 50%.
And then we're going to, step 2, add my 50% increase to get what? Now, when I'm looking at your quizzes, I'm going to make sure that you're going to have not only 150, but 150%, because we're still dealing with the percent. So right here is step 1, right here is step 2, step 3 is to do what? Because we're changing that percent to a...
Aren't you going to take off because you're going to put the equal symbol like this?
Not when you start this one.
Oh.
A decimal, good. So what's 150% divided by 100? And what am I, what am I going to do with this number? Because it's my, good. All right. So I got my first multiplier. So what's my next step I'm going to do? 100%. So I'm going to get my next multiplier. So 100%. So that's step 2, which equals, I heard it's, nah, what's 100%? 50%. And what do I do with this percent? Because I'm changing it to a decimal, which equals? And what's this number called besides a decimal point? My multiplier. Good. So I now have both my multipliers. So I've done my steps 1 through 3. Once I've done my steps 1 through 3, I'm ready to do step 4. Step 4 has me take what? By what? I'm going to take those multipliers and I'm going to multiply it by the original amount. Yeah. So I'm going to take my $20 video game, so Smash Brothers for $20, times my first multiplier, times my second multiplier. So once I took that increase, then decrease, what's that video game going to end up costing me? What's that? $15 even? Would you guys buy a video game for $15?
Yeah, definitely.
It could be the worst game, you'd still buy it for $15.
Well, the cheaper it is, the worse it is.
Yeah. I never realized how expensive video games were until
Usually
Brayden got into it.
Usually it's $39.99.
It's usually $60.
Yeah, some games are like 3DS, so it's like $39.99.
3DS, we got Switch, we got PlayStation, we got, I don't know.
On the 2DS, it's only like $80 for
Yeah.
the 2DS, which is pretty cool.
Brayden's wanting an Xbox now. I'm like, no, we're done.
Xbox One, $199.
I don't even know. I just
have
said
a golden
no.
PS4 Pro.
It doesn't matter. The answer is just no. He says, Mom, can I have an Xbox? I don't even let him finish. I say no.
I have
Okay.
a golden PS4 Pro.
Ooh, nice. Okay, a sweater that is regularly $34.99 is on sale for 33% off. If the tax is 7.75%, how much would you pay for that sweater? All right, how many multipliers am I going to have here? 2. So what are my percent changes I'm looking at? What are my percent increases and decreases in this problem? Okay, so sell for 33%, is that an increase or decrease? Because it's on sale. And then if it's taxed at 7.75%, is that going to be an increase or decrease? Okay. So 2 multipliers. So I'm going to do steps 1 through 3. How many times? 2. Good. So step 1, I do what?
Put 100% minus 30%.
100%. Step 2, I heard it already, minus 33%, which equals, yeah, 67%. Y'all agree with that? And then step 3, change that percent to a by, which equals, good. I'm going to circle it because this is my first multiplier. Moving right along. What do I do next? Got a lot of 100% plus what?
7.75.
Okay, which equals? You guys can help too.
104.75.
Whoa, try that again.
107.
Yeah, 107.75%. Okay. That's a 0, guys. Sorry, that's a really,
That's a 6.
that looks like a 6. Oh, now I erased too much.
Aha.
There we go. Make it look a little bit better. Okay, now what do I do with this 175.75%?
You gonna multiply it with 30.
No. What am I going to do with this 107.75%?
For what?
Not yet.
Oh, you divide it, don't you?
Yeah, I divide it by what?
100.
To change it to a
This
decimal. What's that equal as a decimal? Was it equal as a decimal? No, it's not. It is the same number with the exception of 2 things.
The 0 is gonna be behind the decimal, right?
Yes. So you can either divide it by 100 or you can move the decimal 2 places to the left. And you'd end up with what? 1.0. Yeah. So, yeah, it's the same number, but with the decimal in a different spot. Thank you. Starts today, okay? Okay, now I have both of my multipliers. So my final step is to do what?
You multiply both with the 34.
So I take the original amount of the sweater, which is $34.99, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.67, which was my discount, and then by my 1.0775, which is my tax increase. And what's the price of the sweater going to be? Type that into your calculator. I guarantee you, you're probably going to get a long number. So you're going to have to type that into your calculator because we're going to have to round it. I'm just using your answer as a guideline. Oh, yeah. So what's our big long answer here?
It's 25.
Now, if I'm buying this sweater from Maurice's, is the clerk going to tell me it's $25 and $260,155,575 cents? No. So, when we're dealing with money, how many places past the decimal point do I need? 2. What place value is that called? Hundreds. Good. So, I'm going to round it to the nearest hundred, or they say in this case, round it to the nearest cent. So, I'm going to look at my hundreds place value. Look to the right. Is this number 5 or greater?
It's greater.
0?
No.
Nah. So if this number right next to it is not 5 or greater, what happens to the number we have underlined? It stays the same. So what was the price of that sweater I had to pay? $25.26. And box it. Okay. So that's what your quiz is going to look like. Now, flip the back side of your opener over. The back side of your opener is basically like a little table chart, and it's a conversion chart. We're going to keep coming back to converting because for the rest of this triad, you guys are going to have to convert easily from fraction, percent, decimal, etc. So if you don't remember how to do your conversions, then you need to flip back to your notes. I think it's just one note page in front of what we just did, where it says Converting Fractions, Decimals, and Percents Guide. Okay? Okay, so it says complete the following chart by converting each of the number into the other types. Be sure to show all work. Don't just give me an answer. You guys know at this point I like to see your work. So here I start with a what type of number? So I want to change this fraction to a decimal. So how do I change a fraction to a decimal? Yeah, divide what by what? So I'm going to take my numerator and divide it by my denominator and get what? I think I know what it is, but
I got
that's correct. Okay, now, what kind of number do I have here?
8.
What kind of number is it?
Decimal.
And I'm going to change that decimal to a, how do I, there's two ways that I can change a decimal to a percent. What's one way?
Can't you multiply by 100?
So yeah, so how I'm going to show my work for this, I'm just going to come to the right here, you guys, and take 0.875, sorry, I'm having a really difficult time talking today, if you haven't noticed. Excuse me, I'm going to take 0.875, I'm going to multiply that by 100. Here I'm showing my work, I'm going to put my equals. And when I take that decimal and I multiply it by 100, what do I get? You guys all should... 87.5 what? Percent, because you are changing it to a percent. All of you guys should have your calculators out. It is impossible. Well, it's not impossible to do this problem without a calculator, but for a lot of the other ones, you're going to need it. What's another way that I can change a decimal to a percent?
You go over the
Yeah, you just move the decimal to the right twice. So you could also show your work like this, and then write the same answer. All right, so now I come to my next row. My next row, what type of number am I starting with here, David?
55%.
Percent. So I have two choices. I can change this percent to a decimal, and then the decimal to a fraction, or I can change this percent to a fraction. It does not matter. You can pick to change it to either one first. What do you want to change the 55% to?
I'll change it to a decimal.
Okay, so how are you going to change this percent to a decimal?
Divide by 100.
So I'm going to take 55%, and I'm going to divide by 100. David, when you take 55% and you divide it by 100, what do you get?
You get 0.55.
Good. So I showed my work, and I boxed my answer. Okay? So now, I have a percent, and I have a decimal. I either need to change a percent to a fraction, or I can change the decimal to a fraction. Danielle, which would you prefer to do? Percent to a fraction or a decimal to a fraction? Okay? So you're going to change that decimal to a fraction or the percent to a fraction? Okay? So on your converting notes, how do you change a percent to a fraction? What's your denominator going to be? When you're doing a percent as a fraction, what's your denominator going to be? Your denominator, your bottom number. 100. And your numerator? I just didn't hear you. 55. Now, am I finished with this? No, because I have to simplify it. And if I don't have a calculator to simplify it, what do I automatically know that 55 and 100 are both divisible by? 5. What's 55 divided by 5?
25.
Nah, 55 divided by 5. 11. And what's 100 divided by 5? What's 100 divided by 5? What's 100 divided by 5? 20. You guys, think about it. 100 divided by 5. Not 100 divided by 2. You guys are like, you need to do something. This break was too long for y'all.
No, we love the break. We love the break.
You guys are all
Like
brain
it.
dead on me. Okay, so now I come to the last part of my chart. The last part of my chart, I'm starting with what type of number do I have here, Cody? A decimal. So Cody, you get to pick whether to change his decimal to a percent or if you want to change his decimal to a fraction. What would you prefer to do?
I would prefer to go home.
No, that wasn't a choice. Which of the choices would you prefer to do that I gave you? I would too because it's the easier one. So how do you change a decimal to a percent? There's two ways you can do it.
I moved the decimal point to the root, right?
So 1, 2, which would then equal what?
5.6%.
Perfect. You can show your work just like how I did. Okay? You can show that you moved that decimal and you got that. What's another way that I can change a decimal to a percent? Not divide. Multiply by 100. So, or you can multiply it by 100 and get the same thing. Okay. So our last step that we're going to do is change this decimal because, okay, this is what you guys need to understand. Because this has a decimal in the percent, we can't really change this from this format to a fraction. So we're going to actually have to change this decimal to a fraction. So when I change a decimal to a fraction, if I look at my notes, it says what I'm going to do first is determine the place value of my last digit. So what's the place value of this last digit here? What's the place value of that 6? 1,000. That becomes my denominator. My numerator is then the number without the decimal point. So what's the number without the decimal point? Do I need that 0 in front of there?
No.
Nah. Okay, so right there, we just changed that decimal to a fraction. But fractions, we always had to put in simplest form. We could sit here and divide this out by dividing it by a 2, and it's going to take us a little bit of time. I don't want to sit there and divide it by 2, so I want you guys to use your calculators. In your calculators, you can quickly simplify that by typing in 256, fraction button, 1,000, and what do you get?
32 and 125.
And because this is my final answer, what should I do? Box it. And that is it for the day as far as your opener is concerned.